APAC. Today, we're going to have a chat about takeaway notes from Chinese investors and startups, the macro environment of diagnostics in China. We're very pleased to welcome a very distinguished set of panelists today, from investors to very distinguished IVD companies, both large and very startup. And we're very happy to quickly introduce. So what I like to do is first introduce myself and then have each of the panelists give a quick introduction, okay? So my name is Phillip Huang. I am the Vice President of the Partnering Hub for APAC for Roche Diagnostics. We look after business development opportunities and partnering opportunities from the region, and we scout for innovation that can hopefully help Roche as well as help patients worldwide. And today, let me start off quickly, just name our panelists. We have with us Ray Sun, who is the GM of Fosun Diagnostics. From Day6 Biotech, we have Dr. Frank Chen, who is the co-founder and chief scientist. We have from PixelBiotech, Dr. Yongshen Chen, the CEO. And from calling in, our senior VP from Kinghall Ventures, Dr. Li Chang. So why don't we start, kind of from Ray, and give us a brief introduction about yourself and your company and what you do.
Thanks, Phil. Hi, everybody. This is Ray. I'm from Fosun Pharma, and I take in charge for the corporate strategy, equity investment, and the business development for our IVD division. So our goal is trying to, through the investment and the globalization, and also business development, to build up our diagnostic business to continue with our pharma and medical groups. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Ray. And then Frank.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to this conference and the panel. My name is Frank Chen. I'm a chief scientist of Day6 Biotech based in Shanghai. We're a biotech company focusing on diagnosis. We're using lab-on-a-chip technology, and especially in molecular biodiagnosis. We're mainly focusing right now on infectious disease, such as COVID, of course, influenza, all these respiratory viral disease. And also, we're having the pipeline other infectious disease, such as the ones for STD, and also in cancer areas, biomarkers for diagnosis, basically for companion diagnosis. So we have a platform technology that can do multiplex qPCR or NGS, and in a fully automated fashion from sample to results. And this is probably my 20th startup, and we've been around the block many times, including several acquisitions by large companies and smaller targets sometimes. But our team has been involved in development of the first generation sequencing machine. You guys probably familiar with Megabase. That was our spin-off from Berkeley. And recently, Intergenix, about 3 years ago, acquired by Thermo Fisher. So we're very excited to bring this new generation of technology to the market. And currently, we have a product that already got approved by CE in Europe, and also targeting for 510K submission next year. So excited to be here.
Thanks, Frank. And how about Yongshen next?
Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you very much for organizing having me here. It's an honor to be presented in the panelist. So my name is Yongshen, CEO from PixelBiotech. Actually, I originated in China. I was studying in Beijing and worked there almost for 10 years. And I worked in G Healthcare and Biored. Later, I continued my PhD career in Germany, Heidelberg, in as a biomedical center. I studied my PhD in German Cancer Research Center in Germany is abbreviated as DKFZ. Later, I also started my research scientist career here. And meantime, I invented technology called Hulu Fish. And 2 years after that, not only we filed a patent together with our institute, but we also found PixelBiotech together with some of my alumni in Heidelberg University. So our company is doing is commercialized first our reagent called Hulu Fish is a single molecule fish technology to detect DNA or RNA at a very small scale, all the way down to 100 pp, and can detect any kind of targets because it's a fish technology. Right now, we are not only producing this reagent for our customer as a customized base, but we also develop some solutions for certain applications. For example, in COVID, we were contracted with NIH to develop a rapid diagnosis method for COVID-19, and using our innovative in situ method. We are also developing currently this platform further for cell and gene therapy quality control to detect the exact virus integration, let's say copy number in the cell. And so this is kind of how we're doing now. And we have raised over $3 million from public and private sources. We are still in the pre-revenue phase, so we're a team growing, but we are very excited about what we're doing. We want to change the industry with our technology. Thanks.
Thanks, Chen. And Li Chang, would you like to go next?
Thank you, Philip. This is Chang Li, calling from Guangzhou, China. Let me introduce myself and my company. Guangzhou Kinghall Diagnostics is the first ICL and the largest one in China, with the revenue in 21 more than 11 billion yuan. Kinghall has 37 labs, independent labs in China and Hong Kong and Macau. We cover more than 90% of the Chinese population, and we provide service for more than 24,000 hospitals. So for the Kinghall Ventures, we are the strategic venture capital of the Kinghall Diagnostics. We specifically focused on investing in IVD companies such as instruments, reagents, and raw materials. Thank you for having me here. Thank you.
Thanks, Chan. Again, a very warm welcome to our distinguished panelists. So I'd like to just first dive right into our questions that will hopefully help us understand a bit more about the macro environment of diagnostics in China. So the first question I have for all of our panelists, actually for Frank first, is, given COVID-19 being top of mind and China having been developing quite a number of tests. So last I heard, there were 30 nucleic tests developed and approved in China, 27 antibody tests, 3 antigen tests, and the market being around 27 billion RMB for COVID-19 last year. So given that, how has COVID-19 changed the game, you think, for diagnostics in China? So first off, Frank, if you'd like to start us off.
Well, thank you, Philip. That's a great question. I think COVID not only changed China, right? It's actually transforming the whole diagnostic market globally. And you can see in the technology side, I think the US and Europe is still leading the way in the next generation technology. China is catching up very quickly with COVID, and the scale of COVID testing is really impressive. You were talking about having like tens of millions of assays done in 1 or 2 days. And the goal, and I just heard from the news, the goal is to have any 5 million population city to have a COVID test done for the whole population in that city within like 48 to 72 hours. So that's a very challenging thing, but China pulled it off. And globally, I think China is leading in that kind of a scale. But you see, there's lots of challenges that goes with that kind of large scale effort. There's logistics, there's data management, There's also all kinds of false positive and things that, and then false negative. So when you are talking about you try to catch every fish out of a billion, 1.4 billion people, and manage it to keep it at zero all the time, that is almost impossible in the Western mind. But looking at that, we see several challenges. That supply chain is one thing. Actually our company helped Fosun last year with their antibody test. We were actually helping them with some of the supply chain issues, because the product they have to make involves supply chains from global resources. So I think that going forward, what we really see, there are several trends in COVID that will be different from what happened in the last 2 years, or that we saw in China or in the US. One is, I think there's a supply chain localization that will be going on more and more over time. Because last year, I remember we have to wait like 6 months for some product supplies to come in from India all the way to Europe, then to US, then to China. And we were participating in that. It was very, very challenging, especially there's added cost, there's added time. When you're talking about the lead time of 6 months, you actually miss lots of these tasks has to be finished on the ground, gets delayed. Then the second trend we see going forward is COVID is actually dying down, even though Delta or Delta Plus is really rampaging across the globe right now. But you can see from the example in India, when you have a very fast spike last year, you also have a very quick drop within like a 3 months time frame. And if you look at what India is presenting nowadays as a sort of a test bed for everyone globally, they have a very high rate of not vaccinated, but immunized people, up to 97% in some areas. So with that, I think there's more variants of COVID would come up. So that's a challenge for China. But then also when you open up, sooner or later, it has to happen for China as well. It's happening with lots of these other countries already. So when you open up, you will be seeing lots of other respiratory infections, not COVID, but other things. So for example, influenza or parainfluenza, these will come back again. So what we're focusing on, and I think the Chinese in vitro diagnosis community should pay attention to is actually how do we deal with mixed or hybrid or multiplex detections of multiple diseases caused by different pathogens. So that's an old challenge with humankind for a long time. But this will be even more challenging going forward. How would you be able to deal with that? And I think the current diagnostics in Chinese community that's been used in such a large scale, they're only dealing with usually single pathogens, COVID-19 only, okay? But I think the trend is very clear that you will be dealing with multiple pathogens in the coming months, in this next flu season or the flu season next year. So I think that's very important. So I figure it would be very good to bring up this issue right now because international collaboration is going to be very important. Globally, there has to be a standard and a very close communication between countries that are working all by themselves, okay, which is why we have such a big pandemic globally, and we have such a high death rate in some countries. All right, so people have to be conscientious that science has no borders, especially in medicine. These things has to be shared, the knowledge and the kind of a technology. And also supplies. So that's a big challenge. And also, I think the political leaders might have something in mind as well. How do we deal with the next pandemic? It will happen. And it will be in different forms. It might be even more challenging than COVID because these pathogens, or what you call bacteria or virus, they keep mutate, right? So it's almost like an arms race.
Thank you for the insights, Frank. And then Yongshen, would you like to add to that?
I thank you very much. I think Frank summarized very well how things develop in China. I probably only add one more things to the environment. I see what has changed. I think one word summarize this as very well is in Chinese called Weiji, the crisis and opportunity. I remember in early 2020, I was busy trying to gather in some face masks here in Germany, try to support China. And a few months later, China is supporting the whole world with face masks and creating a lot of new jobs. And to me, what I feel is like really there's a lot of investment now to biotech because of COVID. First of all, the current players in COVID, in diagnosis, they gather a lot of revenue. They're willing to invest in the future because everybody knows pandemic is a short-term things. Have to look for long-term. And we also feel a lot of investment from government. For example, we will benefit from NIH. They gather a called RADx program, Rapid Acceleration of Diagnosis, last year, and they allocate $1.5 billion to fostering new technologies in this field because, like Frank mentioned, we have to prepare for the future pandemics, and there should be more kind of new technology come out. We see mRNA vaccine come out. We see other technologies jumping into diagnosis for let's say for infectious disease, including fish. So we're still working on that, and we are very happy to see there's a lot of new creation, no innovation come out. We even filed a patent this year, and because we continuously invest in this field, and now we're looking more for post-pandemic era, and we can bring this technology to a lot of other diagnosis field. I think I really see a booming market for diagnosis in the next 10 or 20 years because of COVID. Of course, the population suffer a lot, but I think the history is always like the after crisis is always strong growth.
Yes, and we certainly hope that we can commit to all of us to ending this pandemic soon. That's certainly one thing that Roche is very committed to. So let's move on to our second question. We see potentially China's path to global diagnostic leadership, or we see examples of that, and all of you here are examples of that as well. So I'd like to put forth this question to you: How do you see yourself fulfilling that in terms of taking the leadership role in diagnostic leadership for China for your company? So maybe let's start off with Fosun, with Ray.
So the path to the global from China, I think from Fosun side, we will think we're looking actively to do that. And Fosun's strategy is trying to invest or acquire some international companies based on their technology and channels to expand our business. So that's our strategy. So we are also looking actively for the targets. And based on the public knows that there's a big acquisition from a China company called Minway to they acquired High Test. So most of those companies try to go upstream to enrich their portfolio, and also some of the company like Fosun Diagnostics from our group will try to build up the channels through our partner to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ray. And Frank, would you like to add to that in terms of how your company is trying to achieve that as well?
Yeah, so we're sort of a very unique case here because our technology originally developed in the U.S. But what's interesting is over the last 3 years since funding that company, we noticed Chinese engineers and scientists are really giving us a lesson because we noticed they're not just copycats anymore. They're actually leading some of the R&D efforts, and because of the highly educated population, because of the younger age of these engineers, even though they lack more experience like the US, but they learn really fast, and they are actually working much harder than the US counterparts. So we think over time, in the next 5 years, we would definitely see Chinese IVD companies emerge as leaders in the world. Some of them will actually be more innovative, be more cutting edge in technology development because they absorb things much faster, especially new things. Another advantage that I noticed from the Chinese team is actually they are so well educated in other things outside of the biological science fields. So we noticed extremely good software engineers, electronics engineers. So it's easier to do, we notice it's easier to do sort of interdisciplinary integration work in Shanghai than 10 years ago, 5 years ago. It's becoming, you will see some hubs emerging and some multidisciplinary teams emerging in China. So opportunity-wise for multinationals, I think it's a good time to pick some fruits earlier than before because they actually fluid much quicker in China. And also, for example, our company, we are targeting getting European and the US approval first using technology developed out of China. So that's something that don't happen so often if you're talking about 5 years ago, that's unimaginable. But now we can see that the management team, the engineering team, the scientific team are able and willing to take that step ahead of their sort of a Chinese approval. So this is a much more international minded team. And you don't see that, I would say 5-10 years ago, I can't even imagine that. So it's almost like what you saw in Japan 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago. So it's a transformation that's happening very quickly. And the COVID actually accelerated that because the whole world is sort of like in the suspension mode. But the China is sort of the economy is still open. So there's no interruption. These interruptions in the West is very damaging because people work from home. Work from home is never as good as working in a group face to face with people. So I think this is a different era. It's a new era that's very exciting. You will see the Chinese is actually more active in developing new things, and I do see them executing much faster, much better. And over time, I think in 5 years, you will see several really leading edge companies emerging from that. And we hope we're one of them.
We'll see more serial entrepreneurs like yourself, right?
Yeah. Certainly it's something that's very exciting for us because one thing is you develop new technology, but another thing is you always meet new people and the new culture, right? So the startup culture in China and also the commerce heavy policies in China is very, very exciting for everyone. Yeah.
Right. Thanks, Frank. Yeah, I remember meeting you last time at JP Morgan, and so I don't know if you were on the same company before, but
we sold that one. We sold that one 3 years ago.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Yongshen, would you like to add to this? You know, how you plan to innovate as well as showcase the leadership for diagnostics?
Yeah, I think Ray and Frank show a very good example how Chinese companies are leading in this way. We can probably contribute a little bit perspective from our view, because we are spin-off company from German Cancer Research Center. In the very beginning, we are thinking the IP, all these things very seriously. For example, we have to go through all these things in German law and negotiate a good deal with our home institute. Even they become our shareholder, but still, I think some mutual respect is very important. So from very beginning, we understand to play in the Western culture, how Chinese or people originating from China can work with this kind of culture, because this is a big culture kind of difference. And but now we kind of gradually manage it in a way, especially from last year. We with IH support, we got to know a lot of vendors, some in US, some in Europe, and talk with different vendors to kind of leverage on their technology and their effort. I think this is a very good training for us, for startup. It's a privilege to work in such an early stage. We even talk to FDA, to regulatories about our technology, how to design the clinical trial. And I see the words like actually it's very helping us. It's like so I'm really appreciate that, and I do think with an open-minded mindset, Chinese company do have a potential to lead in diagnosis work. With our like Frank said, in China there's so many kind of talents in engineering. I think this is an advantage. Like as an old Chinese saying, like 3 ordinary people can beat a very wise man, right? So I think this is one advantage. Everybody should not overlook it, and that's why we also want to move back some business to China and to leverage on that resources.
Yeah, I want to add to that, because it's not the talents in China is getting to a level that's pretty much international standard, meets international standard. We were fortunate that our chief engineer is also a serial entrepreneur. He actually was one of the founders for a company that was acquired by Perkin-Elmer like 12 years ago, and then he started another company working on an assay for HbA1c, which is really used by all the diabetic patients. He was able to invent a new machine based on HPLC that took over market share from my previous company, and now it's like 85% of the HbA1c assays in China was done by a machine he designed. And so he sold his second company, and we're fortunate to have someone based in Shanghai to lead the effort that's developing a next generation sort of lab on a chip, quick test, molecular test for multiple assays. So I think one thing you have to notice, China is accumulating experience in the IVD field, because when you're fighting wars several times, you get so experienced as an old soldier that you will just fight the next war in your dreams. We were fortunate to see that happening in firsthand in our own company, because we saw that we have great talents that are so experienced. You can't even find these talents in other places for so easily. For example, in the US or Europe, these people who are experienced are getting old, they're retired. But the China still have these younger talents that are so experienced and so energetic now. It makes things happen much faster in the pace, much faster than in the West. So that's something also very, very interesting. Longer term is you will see new innovations, not just copycat things, as I mentioned, coming out of China. And so I think investors should look to China not only for market, but also for technology in the next 5 years.
Absolutely agree with you, Frank. I mean, we see China as an innovation center and hub for us as well, and almost like Silicon Valley, in its heyday, when it was starting
Exactly.
up. We see that ecosystem developing now here in China. We actually just had our first Roche accelerator demo day in Shanghai this week. So lots of very exciting first-in-class technologies we're seeing here. So fantastic. Now let's switch gears. And on your note about this ecosystem, we're talking about Silicon Valley. That always brings us to the question of the tech giants, right? So the Googles, of course, being in China, we have the Tencent and Alibaba and these type of companies. We see them also entering our space as well in medtech. And what do you think of that? Maybe first I put forth the question to Yongshen, since your company has a bit of the digital component to your technology.
Well, first, I think this is an inevitable kind of trends, like tech companies or the tech product is invading into medical spaces. I think this is one good thing to us because we also leverage on that. For example, computing. We have a component using AI software to analyze the image data we got from our reagent. And conventionally, it was done by even human eye in pathologist lab. And now it's completely, at least automated by a machine. However, the computing is really heavy. So leverage on the cloud computing is a good thing for us. So I think that's kind of a singularity moment for us. Without this infrastructure available like everywhere almost, we wouldn't think of our product to incorporate a AI computing on the cloud to integrate in our product. On the other hand, what we're doing is more like molecular diagnosis. I think medtech company, tech companies are more go to the class 1 devices. For example, if you wear an Apple Watch, it might measure your blood pressure or heart rate so on. But this is more like a vital science. So for complex disease diagnosis, I think molecular diagnosis is the future. And I didn't see the way to minimize it as on your watch, for example. So I think there's a different space, but we also leverage a lot on the big development in computing, let's say. Yeah, and I don't know how everybody sees this. And in our company, I mean, almost every product involve a lot of programming. I mean, this is very interesting. To 10 years ago, when I worked in Beijing in G Healthcare, there we usually sell a reagent and that's it. Now a lot of our reagent is customer designed in computer first, and then produced in real world. So I do see a lot of difference in our company already, as an example. So I think the tech is a good thing. And like Fran said, there's a lot of talented people with multidisciplinary trainings, not only biologists, but probably also a bioinformatician, right? So I think this is all good things. It's interdisciplinary background is creating new things.
That's great. Yeah, no, it's definitely the convergence of talent. I think that's going to really push forward the diagnostic space even further and help all of us, as a population. So that's fantastic. And the next question for Ray, actually, first of all, congratulations. I hear recently you've made an acquisition and it's been quite successful. So on that topic, I just wanted to first ask what you feel are the trends, maybe starting off with your example about Sino-foreign kind of joint ventures or partnerships or acquisition cases.
Great, thanks, Philip. So yeah, recently we acquired a company at the pathology area, and the company is founded in San Diego, and this also they have footprint in China with about more than 100 hospital clients in China. And the purpose we acquired the company trying to companion with our IO therapy from Fosun. We have a subsidiary company. They have quite a lot of pipelines focused on the IO therapy and also the allergy and autoimmune disease. So those the targeted companies that we acquired, they have the fully list to companion with those therapies in the future. So we're trying to trigger the clinical trials both in China and in States and also in Southeast Asia. So that's the purpose. And also we are talking with several MNCs right now, try to set up the JV in China because the China policy changed quite a lot in recent years. For example, for those fundings come from the government, try to purchase the device like gene sequencer, and the policy is mandatory to using the localized manufactured sequencer that can be deployed into the hospital. And also, I talked with several local governments in China, and those governments have strongly encouraged those foreign companies to set up their entities together with like the Chinese corporate to localize their technology and the manufacture side into China. So that's the trend from us. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Ray. Chen, do you want to add to that from an investment angle?
Thank you, Philip. From my point, I think a Sino-foreign joint venture can be done in two ways. As you know, all the major players in IVD globally, the major companies such as Siemens, Roche, Beckman Coulter, and Albert, they have been present in China for more than 2 decades. In the same way, some major IVD players, local players in China, such as Mandarin, Myri, and Wonderful, they all have research units and sales units in Europe and the US, North America. So it's kind of two ways. Currently, based on the more frequent communication and the travel between in the last few decades, in the last few years, between US, China, and Europe and China, I saw more acquisition license in or license out between the China and the foreign countries. I can give a few examples. Some companies, some of the portfolio companies of our firm, one is Demand Biotechnology. This is the hematology IVD companies. They made the acquisition in US in last year. Another portfolio company is called Epicolono. It's a provider of the antigen, antibody, and the film proteins, and some other chemicals are the raw materials for IVD reagents. They also made some acquisitions in US last year. So I saw more and more this kind of two-way, joint ventures, not just one way. Big foreign companies come to China and made investment and open research center and also manufacturing plants. I think it's the two ways in the futures.
Great, thank you very much for the insight, Chang. So let's move on. The next question I have for all the panelists is, how does Global Diagnostics corporate accelerate localization in China? That's always a question. And maybe to start off with, Yongshen.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the question. I think probably Frank have more to say than ours, and because we are still a startup now in Germany, we do think about to have a subsidiary in China. We have some initial experience contacting with Chinese investors, vendors, and also local government, and try to have a good start in China, and also customers. We want to stay closer to our customers. And because there's some kind of limitations. For example, if we want to do some sample testing, the sample's not easily transported. So it has to be localized, and also it has to be in a swift manner with local team to support them. That's why we, even with our limited resources, we try to acquire new team members in China and to support the local business and local customers. This is on the way, and right now we're looking in the area very close to Shanghai in this region because a lot of our customers are there, and the initial experience was very good, and people are very open-minded, even from the government. I think this is completely blow my mind away. Usually I thought they're like, they're the governments come on, but now they really want to help new companies to set their business there, to attract talents to their city. I think this is a very good trend to us, and we do want to work with all of these partners and to move our business there, because this is such a vibrant environment. And especially, I think after pandemic, there will be a lot of kind of flow back to China, all these things. And so this is just some kind of perspective from my side.
Great, thank you, Yongshen. Ray, would you like to also add a comment on that?
Yes, thanks, Philip. So right now we are dealing with a case that's a majority share acquisition case in China, focused on the immunodiagnostic area. And there is a global diagnostic company that are trying to acquire that company together with us. So I think for the strategy from those leading corporate trying to step into China, acquisition is the, one of the choice for them.
Okay, great. Well, I hope that goes well for you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, and then our last question for the panel discussion today: how should the business model adapt? Given kind of the changes we see, whether it's from localization to the policy changes to the genetic law examples like this. What are your thoughts about how we should adapt as businesses? Yongshen, would you like to start us off?
Thank you, Philip, for this question. So, I think for startup, this is probably not even a question. This is a mission. It's like you have to adapt your product and technology for the market. We are very good example. 3 years ago, in the beginning, because we invented technology, we have a very cool technology and superior to our competitors. We think that's it, and we will have a bit lower price, and then we will conquer the market. But actually, it's not the case after this year's try, and we have to develop first trust with customers, because you have to make aware of your product to the market, and there's a lot of effort. I think this is a big company are good at it. So a small company like us, we have to also build our kind of capability in that space, and also listen to the customer's voice. And this is something I also experienced 10 years ago in China. There, I was working in the Beijing office of GE Healthcare. Even though we hear some voice from the customer, but the R&D is usually in US or in Europe or somewhere. And so there's kind of a disconnection and a gap. And but now as a startup, we have the opportunity to have day zero response. So indeed, we actually, a lot of our kind of current product line is based on the feedback or the communication with customers. For example, the cell and gene therapy product, we were contacting with a Chinese company, ImmunoChina in Beijing. They were asking, can you do something better than PCR to determine the copy number? Because that only gives you an average number. And for certain assays, we do need a single cell level of measurement. And with this task in mind, and also with the new technology we're inventing, always keep in mind, and can we do better? So finally, this year, we built a new patent for that. So we can now stain the individual viral copy integration into every cell, and we measure every cell based on the same technology we developed for COVID. And so this is, I think now, to me, is a big shift. Like we moved from technology to more to market oriented, like see what markets really need, right, to solve some unmet need. Otherwise, the technology then become nothing. Even that is a patent, and it's my own patent. I'm an inventor. I feel like I have an obligation to make this technology available to everybody. But still, we have to listen to the market, and also looking after the big change in the industry. For example, every 5 to 10 years, there might be big change to the industry. And there's AI coming around like these days. And probably, who knows, in the next 5 or 10 years in the computing world, there will be different things. In biology, CRISPR now is really super hot. It's mRNA vaccines, new things. So these are all new things to this field, and can bring new value or even create new market. We will try to embrace it as a kind of a strategy to survive and thrive. Talking about CRISPR, we actually combine our technology with CRISPR to do some new applications. So I think this is not only technology-wise, business side is always about change, and as a management team, we always have to look after these changes. I think the only thing that doesn't change is change, right? And so we do have an open mind to that. And I think that's all good things about startups. So you can change it very quickly, swiftly. And in order to, I think even for big company like Roche, you're also looking a lot of changes and monitor the new things. I think this is not a kind of unique thing to startup at all, probably to all other companies. And always remember your competitors might not be your competitor. The one who kill your business might from other side, from other kind of sector even.
Yeah, thank you very much for shedding that light, Yongshen. It is about really balancing those different metrics you have, whether it's pure innovation versus scalability and really helping the patients, right? So there is that balancing act there. So thank you for embracing that. Frank, you also had a point to add as well.
Yeah, I think to adapt to this new era in Chinese market, it's actually very challenging. And I want to just share one of the perspective I have. Because one thing we get asked all the time in China when we are meeting with customers, investors, is how much it costs, how low can it go? So you can see the Chinese are always very price sensitive. Especially with the new government sort of a group purchasing policy, they push the price almost to a level that no one can make money. So I think that's a very difficult situation for lots of these startups. From my experience with previous startups, we never seen any market like that. Sort of what we call the racing to the bottom pricing. So how do we adapt to that? That's probably the most challenging and important question every company has to ask themselves, big or small, including Roche. You probably also are getting squeezed by the government for some of these purchasing things, and they want pricing that's unheard of in other areas of the world. So I think you have to think about solutions for that, creative solutions. And on the other side, I think you have to. I think the solutions, in my mind, lays in several points. One is you have to use globalization, global supply chains to meet that kind of demand, because China is not cheap anymore. So you have to find creative solutions, maybe in Southeast, maybe even out of Japan, because we notice sometimes the Japanese can deliver things cheaper than anyone else in some areas. Maybe you have to look to Korea. So you cannot just look at China for low cost anymore. And also the Chinese cost is going up so fast. With every year you're looking at human costs going up 20% sometimes, especially for highly skilled engineers. Then another thing is you have to really focus on technology innovation. Okay, technology can drive down the cost. That's your another way out. That means you have to be very flexible in using technologies that's unheard of in your conventional comfort zone. You have to look at material science. You have to look at computer science. You have to find ways to compute things much faster, and also how to cut costs in production. So manufacturing scale up. That you have to pay more attention if you want to make money in China, and you have to think about ways to make money on the sideline. For example, making money on management or health management, making money off the information, making money of long-term management. So these things that you really have to think about different ways of cutting costs and making money in China. And I think that's the most important part of the Chinese market. And it's the unique property of the Chinese market. If you don't pay attention to that, whether you're really big or small, you won't be able to make any money. If you don't make money, then investors won't be happy. And you cannot sustain yourself over the long term. That's just my 2 cents.
Thanks for sharing that. So thank you very much, panelists, for our deep dive into the questions today. Let's now enter the Q&A session of our panel discussion. We actually have a couple questions already from the audience. The first question, how can foreign companies benefit from China's emerging technology and talent? Who would like to take that?
I can share some of my experience. I think the Chinese talents and technology really are difficult sometimes because you have very high churn rates for talents. Because you probably will have 50% of your employee not working for you within 12 months. They might jump to another company, take your technology, take your knowledge, and take your customer wisdom. So I think you want to take a slow approach when you are entering China. This is for the international audience. You have to find trustworthy management. You have to establish that first. You have to establish your network of clinicians first. So think about, you have to have something that you're not afraid of getting copied by the Chinese and not afraid being copied by your employees. So there's a huge risk in that. And you have to be careful. My advice is take it slowly in the beginning. Try to manage it on site with people who you can trust, or find the partners you can trust, because otherwise you will be burned very quickly. That's just my own experience and lots of my friends' experience.
Thanks for the advice, Frank. Anybody else?
Hi, Philip. I can add to that.
Hi, Chen. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, actually, I saw more and more, innovation and technology advancement in localized Chinese companies, Chinese IVD companies in the last few years. The major, driving force is more investment from government and private investors like us. So the thing here is that when we go out to see these new technologies, we do see people from global companies, such as I have mentioned, those big four, plus whatever, Varian, Danaher, we saw those companies because for all of those major IVD players globally, they have been present in China for many years. They have localized the people, BD people, on the same page as us. So I would say, for foreign companies, they do benefit from the China emerging technologies. They do. They are on the same page. So actually, based on my experience, sometimes we have to, to compete with the foreign companies, those big players, for good deal. That's what I say. Regarding talents, I agree with Frank. Especially for some, highly educated, highly experienced, and those talents had a very high turnover rate. If they think they can find a better job, better pay package, or even some better position or better location, whatever, they will jump in China. That's very common. So I would say, benefit package is only one factor. So as a startup, compared to big companies, I think you have to think about, comprehensive way to, retain those talents, not just salary, stock options, and some, better, career track, and even some, subsidy for the housing, those kind of things. So it's really depend on who are you hiring and what kind of potential benefits to a startup. So that's a complex thing. So that's up to management to think about the best way. So that's my 2 cents. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much, Cheng, for the insights. Let's move on to our second question now. The next question, what should international biotechs expect if they are building a subsidiary in China? So Ray, would you like to comment on this?
Yeah. Yes, thanks. So for those international biotech companies goes to China to set the subsidiary, I think most of the local government will encourage you to do that. and most of those city level industry parks, they have already set up the entire supply chains for those new companies, like from CDMOs to CROs or even sales organizations. They have fully involved and prepared for those governments. And also, even for, as I know, some of the governments, they have their own grants or funds. They can invest directly to those subsidiary of those international biotech companies, but be aware of how the funds can exit when you decide to step into China. And also based on the common practice right now for those local governments, there will be like 3 years waive of the income tax for most of those cities. So that's the benefits from the trend.
Thank you for the insight, Ray. Anybody else would like to add to that? No? Any more questions? Karen, do you know if we have any more questions online?
I think we don't have any more questions online. Okay. Maybe they're typing in, but we are running out of time as well.
Right.
So DXBX, thank you all the panelists. That was a very exciting and vibrant discussion. All the audiences, you can stay tuned and we have more programs afterwards.
Thank you again
from
my side, all the panelists, and thanks Karen and DXBX.
Thank you, glad to be here. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thanks, Karen.
Thank you everyone.
Bye-bye.